What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome into the Jets Report. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we got some massive salary cap news for you guys as the Jets are actually getting some great news as they're opening up around $13 million after June 1st. We'll explain what that means here in a second, but before we do so, we're actually only 15 subscribers away from 6.5K subs here on the channel. So if you guys aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button today. It's a free easy way to help us grow this channel here at Chat Sports. And plus, if you're a diehard Jets fan and want a Jets video every single day this offseason, hit that subscribe button today and help us reach 6.5K subs off today's show. All right, so Over the Cap was breaking down a bunch of teams that are going to, get some cap relief after the June 1st deadline. And this is what they had to say about the New York Jets, saying Jets gained $13.5 million with the release of Aaron Rodgers and C.J. Mosley. The Jets currently have Rodgers on the roster at $23.5 million, and I believe that number will fall to $14 million on the season. It is possible that it will be $21 million, giving the Jets $7 million less in savings for this year, with the $7 million instead being added to the 2026 cap space. The failed Rodgers experiment leaves the team with $25 million in dead money in 26. Rodgers is currently not in the NFL, but the expectation is he will sign with the Steelers in the coming days. The Jets were 1 year too late on the modification of Mosley's contract, what left them in a much worse position this year with his contract. His cap number falls to $12.784 million to $8.784 million, but the $4.25 million of that number is paid in cash that was guaranteed in 24. He will count for $7.65 million on the cap next year. Mosley is currently out of the NFL. The Jets should now be up to around $37 million in cap room for 2025, which should help them with being more active in 2026 for free agency and extension talks. And just a friendly reminder here, most NFL teams, they want to have at least $5 million to spend during the regular season, where it's like a big trade deadline move, or maybe that's an extension they want to get done. But I do think the Jets opening up this $37 million, it most likely means a Sauce Gardner and a Garrett Wilson extension will get done at some point during the season. Now, most of these teams, when they do extend these big time, specifically wide receivers, you could take the Vikings and the Eagles, for example, with A.J. Brown and Justin Jefferson. They'll give them, $32, $35 million per year, but their cap hits early on in the deal will only be around, 10 to 15 million, still giving them flexibility. Where I could see the Jets doing the same thing. Like, hey, Sauce, Garrett Wilson, we'll give you these big-time extensions. You'll get a fat payday with that signing bonus, but still that cap hit will maybe be, 12 to 15 million for each of those guys, which I think the Jets should definitely consider. But also this, what if Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji start off the season red hot? What if the Jets are 4-1? And maybe they're looking at the trade deadline and saying, oh, we could go make a playoff push, which I will say, even though I think the Jets have less than a 0.5% chance to win the Super Bowl this season. But I do think they have a decent chance to make the playoffs, and I think getting that 7th seed in the AFC could be huge for the culture, because then you're looking around, oh, wow, this team was a disaster for the last, decade or so in the NFL, but the first year with Glenn and Muji, they're able to make the playoffs. Maybe they try to be ultra aggressive at the trade deadline, but it all depends on how the Jets start the season. Like, you could also make the opposite argument, where if the Jets, if they start this season slow, maybe they could be sellers at the deadline, just as like any team. And there's always a couple teams out there where we think they're going to be really, really special during the season, end up struggling early, and then they will start cutting bait on some of their, big-time players. So maybe the Jets could take advantage of that. But a couple of trade rumors I've seen floated out there, and we can start off with Kyle Pitts here. Listen, I have no interest if I was the Jets and for trading for Kyle Pitts. I'd rather just have Mason Taylor straight up at this point. This guy's a freak athlete. 6'6", almost 250 pounds. But he just hasn't, lived up to that draft pedigree. Even, he hasn't came close to being worthy of a top 10 pick. So I've seen a couple people asking about Pitts trade. I would be against it. I know it would be nice to have that another weapon, but still, Pitts just isn't that guy at this point in his NFL career. And then also Jalen Ramsey. I understand the Jets have somewhat of a need at the cornerback position, even though A.Z. Thomas and Brandon Stevens, I'm hoping Wilks and Glenn will get some good play out of them. But in terms of a Ramsey trade, you'd have to take on around $20 million over the next 4 seasons. I would probably be against it. But again, maybe Ramsey stays on the Dolphins during the season. Maybe that's a trade deadline move, but I anticipate Rams to be on a new team within the next 24 hours here. But it could be a big-time addition in terms of a signing. Now, I've seen a lot of people talking about a guy like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, even a guy like Gabe Davis. I'm in the camp that Jets should not pick up another pass catcher because we have also seen Arian Smith looks like a stud at OTAs. I would rather have him, Corley, Lazard, even a guy like Tyler Johnson get those reps. But I would probably also scratch off Von Miller. I think the Jets are good at edge. Now, maybe a guy like Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons, Julian Blackmon, even a Raekwon Davis could have some intrigue for the New York Jets. Even a guy like Stephon Gilmore, will say, adding a veteran in that group wouldn't be the worst situation, as you do have a lot of young corners there. But if I had to call it, or if I had to make a prediction, I would probably guess the Jets use that extra money to just go and extend Sauce and Garrett Wilson, as both those players definitely deserve that. But you guys let me know. Drop a name down below in the comment section. Name a player the Jets should sign or trade for. You guys let me know that player's name down below in the comments. All right, so Rich Cimini of ESPN, who covers the New York Jets, was writing up a very, very good article talking about Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks, and I just wanted to get all this info out to you guys. Shout out to Cimini. I actually thought this was a beautifully written article, but he started off talking about Steve Wilks here, and as he should have some new energy heading into the New York Jets, saying Steve Wilks went from the San Francisco 49ers to the Charlotte 49ers, from the bright lights of the Super Bowl stage to the solitude of a darkened film room on a college campus. Quite a journey for the Jets' new defensive coordinator. After 1 year as the 49ers coordinator for the 2023 NFL season, he was abruptly fired after their 25-22 overtime loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Wilks sat out 2024 and took a voluntary position at UNC Charlotte. And, I think obviously, like, Aaron Glenn's getting all the love this offseason from Jets fans. And maybe I should do a better job of giving Steve Wilks, the love and the attention that he probably deserves, because this guy's been around the NFL for a very long time. He's one of the smartest defensive minds we do have in the league. And I think the combination of Wilks and Glenn manning that defense, you should just get an elevated sense of play out of a couple of these like mid-tier players like Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner. Those guys will be blue chippers no matter who the defensive coordinator is. But I guess you could say like a guy like Sauce, who had a down year in year 3 of his NFL career, maybe Glenn just turns him into like, where he's at right now, like the 3rd, the 5th best corner, into the best corner. And maybe a guy like Quinnen, where he's probably the 3rd, the 5th best defensive tackle in the league, he turns him into the best defensive tackle in the league. But Rich Cimini also had this to say about Steve Wilks and the Jets secondary, saying Wilks' biggest challenges are integrating cornerback Brandon Stevens and safety Andre Sisco into the lineup, sorting out the crowded defensive tackle situation, developing depth at all 3 levels, and recapturing the defensive swagger that vanished last season. And that's a great point by Cimini, because even though the Jets have been, a disaster over the last couple of years, you always felt like they had a sense of swagger on that side of the football. And I think Andre Sisco is the biggest X factor on defense, because number one, the safety position is thin for the New York Jets. They are hoping that Sisco is a borderline Pro Bowl caliber player. And him being the ball hawk he is, he's got great instincts. You hopefully have a defensive line that should pressure the quarterback at a high level, and you still have a very, very good corner in Sauce Gardner. I could see Sisco having 5 to 7 interceptions this season and really being the breakout guy for this defense. So my biggest X factor on that side of the football, it's Andre Sisco, and it's by a very wide margin. But I love this here. I saw this in the Cimini article. Glenn has this new mantra to his wide receivers: no block, no rock. Now, I think that applies for every other receiver outside of Garrett Wilson, but I love this mentality. And plus, you have 2 receivers in like a Malachi Corley and Arian Smith, where they probably don't love the run blocking game because they are undersized guys, but I love the fact that Aaron Glenn is like, hey, we're going to be built through the run, and that is not only to do with the offensive line and the running backs. The receivers on the outside, y'all got to block too. Because with the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a fantastic blocking wide receiver. Even a guy like Tim Patrick, he was fantastic. Even Jamison Williams, we saw him take that part of his game to another level this past season. But this was Rich Cimini had to write up on the Jets wide receivers, saying the new staff has placed an emphasis on perimeter blocking by the wide receivers, essential for explosive plays in the running game. The Jets were lacking in that department last season as they produced only 45 rushes of 10 yards or more, which ranked 24th. They can't truly sharpen their blocking skills in the offseason because the practices are padless, but they certainly have enough size at receiver to form a good blocking group. Their biggest bodies belong to Alan Lazard, 6'5", 227, and Josh Reynolds, 6'3", 192. And that's a good point Cimini made. Like, if you want to be an explosive running offense, it's the guys on the outside. And it's also a combination, I do think, of the running backs being able to, take like a 10-yard gain and be able to take it to the house. But the amount of times you go watch like all 22 film and it's like, oh, if that receiver would have just blocked that safety, this run would have went to the house. And I do think the Jets are going to have a couple of packages this season where, maybe it is a 3 wide receiver set and it's Garrett Wilson, but then it's Lazard maybe in the slot. Maybe it's Reynolds as the other wide receiver on the outside and they're just going run first. And then maybe that could, trick other defensive corners being like, oh, when we see those guys out there, we're going to assume they're going to run. It's going to open up the play action game, which will obviously help out Justin Fields. So I love this mentality. It starts in the run game. It starts with doing the little things. And, blocking as a wide receiver, no wide receiver wants to do that. Wide receivers aren't going out there and they're practicing their blocking. They're practicing their routes. They're on the jugs machine. But I do like that Glenn is, making that a big point of emphasis for that group heading in the next season. But this guy's fantastic. I love him. And if you guys want to show Aaron Glenn some love down below in the comment section, give me those AGs down below. And we'll see y'all next time. As always, go Jets.